Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to finally talk about clothing. This will be a longer video, and god am I not looking forward to how tough the editing is going to be, but for you guys, it's all worth it. And it's an important topic. First we're going to go over layering, then all the different attributes of clothing, then we're going to work on assembling 3 clothing loadouts, one for defense, one for movement, and one for warmth. So let's not delay and hop straight into it by talking about layering. Clothing is obviously quite important in the long dark, but which clothes are being worn in which slot is also important. Looking at the clothing tab of the inventory, we see a lot of slots. All of these slots are in different groups. We have the 2 head slots, 4 torso slots, 2 outer and 2 inner, 1 glove slot, 2 accessory slots, 4 lower body slots, 2 pants, 2 long johns, 2 sock slots, and finally 1 shoe slot. Each of these groups have an inner and outer slot, the innermost being shown in green and outermost being shown in red. An easy rule of thumb for remembering which slots are which is by looking at the position to the survivor in the center. The ones that are closer to the survivor are the inner slots. The ones that are farther away are the outer slots. Now the biggest thing to note here is the groups of 4, the torso and lower body. To help explain how these groups work, let's focus in on one of them. The lower body has 2 sections, pants and long johns, each with their own respective inner and outer layers. However, this group of 4 has an inner and outer section, the outer section being pants and inner section being long johns. So when the game is deciding what you have on your outermost layer, it checks the inner and outer pants before it ever looks at the outer long johns. So instead of seeing our outer and inner lower body like this, look at it like this instead, where it checks from outside to in, top to bottom. The same thing applies to the torso group. The game will check both of the outer torso clothing items before it ever checks either of the inner torso items. But why do we even care what the outermost clothing is? Well, what you have on your outermost layer greatly affects the clothing attribute bonuses you'll receive. So let's talk about those bonuses now. Warmth, windproof bonus, waterproof bonus, protection, mobility, and weight. Warmth is pretty easy to understand. Each clothing's warmth bonus affects your ambient feels-like temperature. So the warmer the clothing, the warmer you feel. Pretty easy to understand. The only thing to take note of here is that as clothing loses condition, its warmth bonus decreases, with the bonus you'll receive being equal to its condition. For example, a piece of clothing at 50% condition only gives 50% of its maximum warmth bonus. Windproof bonus is a little different from warmth. It doesn't add to your ambient temperature, but it does provide a shield against wind chill. For example, let's say your survivor has a total warmth bonus of 4 degrees Celsius and a total windproof bonus of 4 degrees Celsius. On a nice windless day on Great Bear with ambient air temperature of negative 12 degrees Celsius, your survivor would have a feels-like temperature of negative 8 degrees, only benefiting from the warmth since there was no wind to reduce. But now let's say a slight breeze kicks in, introducing 5 degrees of wind chill to the equation. Your survivor's feels-like temperature would now only go up to negative 9 degrees because of your 4 degree windproof bonus mitigating the 5 degree wind chill down to 1 degree. Windproof bonus is unlike warmth in another way as well, in that only your survivor's outermost layer of clothing has any effect on your windproof bonus. Before we can talk about waterproof bonus, let's quickly go over how wetness works in the long dark. First of all, wetness counters windproof bonus. As a piece of clothing becomes wet, its windproof bonus reduces, with each 1% of wetness reducing the clothing's windproof bonus by 1%. Wetness also affects the warmth value of clothing, with 100% wet clothes losing 15% of their warmth value. Additionally, the wetter a clothing item becomes, the heavier it gets, and once a piece of clothing is 100% wet, it will start to freeze if the ambient air temperature is below freezing. As clothing gets more frozen, it gets significantly heavier and loses large amounts of warmth, with 100% frozen clothes losing 100% of its warmth and windproof bonuses. The waterproof bonus affects how quickly your clothing will change wetness. The higher the bonus on the piece of clothing, the slower it gets wet and the faster it dries. Unlike the other clothing attributes, your survivor doesn't have a total waterproof bonus. The waterproof bonus of each article of clothing only affects that specific item, and not the other clothes you wear. When your clothes do get wet, it starts with the outermost layer and only makes the inner layers wet once your outer layer has become 100% wet. But because the waterproof bonus affects each individual article of clothing, it doesn't matter what layer your clothes are on, if they start to get wet, the bonus takes effect. Protection is a very important attribute. All clothing providing protection contributes to a percentage of your survivor's total protection bonus, and for each percent of protection bonus, you take that much less damage for things like falls, burns, or wildlife. So if you have a 50% bonus, you will take half damage from those sources. Protection does not reduce the risk of receiving negative afflictions during a struggle though, like lacerations, sprains, or blood loss, but it does reduce the damage you will take from receiving those afflictions. Like the windproof bonus, only the clothing on your outermost layer contributes to your survivor's protection bonus, with the exception of your accessory slots, and the bonus does not deteriorate with condition loss. Mobility is very simple. For each percent of mobility loss, your maximum stamina is reduced by that much percent. All clothing contributes to your mobility reduction and not just your outermost layer. Finally, weight. Again, very simple. It's how much the clothing weighs. There is just one thing that needs to be noted about clothing. When wearing a piece of clothing, only 75% of its weight is counted in your carry weight. Not something that really affects what you should be wearing, but it is a neat fact to know. Alright, let's start creating our clothing loadouts. To do this, let's look at each clothing slot and find the best option for defense, movement, and warmth. I'm only covering those 3 areas because those are the 3 most impactful and consistent areas. Due to windproof only being super useful with high wind, and waterproof only being super useful when it's snowing, I decided it would be a better idea to try and optimize 3 attributes that are constant and always affect your survivor. We're going to go from the bottom up, starting with shoes. For defense, the ski boots and combat boots tie for the most defensive at 10% protection. The ski boots are twice as warm with a 3 degrees Celsius lead on windproof bonus, but they weigh twice as much and have an additional 13% mobility reduction. So unless you are desperate for the extra warmth, the combat boots are going to be your best bet. So we'll put those at our number 1 protection spot and the ski boots at 2. Next is another tie between the work boots and deerskin boots, both at 7% protection. We're going to go with the deerskin here because they are warmer, 45% more waterproof, and are more mobile with only a 0.5 kilogram increase in weight. Now let's look at them for mobility. If you want maximum mobility, no shoe beats the running shoes with 0% mobility reduction. After that, your best option is the trail boots, followed by leather shoes. For warmth, we again have a tie between the ski boots and insulated boots. We're going to opt for the insulated boots here because they are 2.5 kilograms lighter, have 8% more mobility, and are 20% more waterproof, with the only thing ski boots do a better job at being the 2 degrees Celsius higher windproof bonus. Our third slot is going to be taken by the mucklucks, which, aside from being a very fun word to say, are only 0.5 degrees Celsius less warm than the other 2 options. So with our shoe options out of the way, let's move on to socks. Socks are quite simple. You see all those squares? All of them? Yeah, all those. Put climbing socks in them. All of them. All socks weigh the same except for sports socks, which are a little bit lighter, but only have 1/4 the warmth of climbing socks. All of them have 0% protection and mobility reduction. Out of sock options, the climbing socks have the best warmth, wind protection, and waterproof bonuses. So they are number 1 in all categories, with wool socks at number 2 and sports socks at 3. Long johns are in the same situation as socks. There are only 2 types of long johns, the basic thermal underwear and wool long johns. Wool long johns are the best in all circumstances. They weigh twice as much, but that is only a 0.25 kilogram increase for better warmth, waterproof, and protection bonuses. Now let's talk about pants. The most protective pants are wolfskin and deerskin pants at 10%, with the edge being given to wolfskin pants because they are warmer. For a third place slot, it would go to work pants with their 8% protection, but I'm actually going to give it to combat pants with 7% protection. This is because they weigh half as much and provide an additional 0.5 degrees of warmth, which I think is a worthy trade-off. But if you are desperate for every single bit of protection, you could go with the work pants. For mobility, the best choice is combat pants with their 0% reduction, followed by cargo pants and then jeans, both of which only have 1% reduction, but the cargo pants' extra warmth pushes it above jeans. For warmth, nothing beats the wolfskin pants for the number 1 spot. Number 2 is snow pants, and number 3 being deerskin pants. In regards to gloves, the best protection comes from the tactical gloves with 7% protection, followed by gauntlets with 5% and then work gloves with 4%. Movement is basically negligible for gloves. The most movement costly glove you'll find is rabbit skin mittens, but that is only a 5% reduction, and the next highest after that is 3%. So you don't really need to worry about your gloves for movement. And if you are desperate for the most mobility you can get, just avoid rabbit skin mittens and gauntlets and you'll be fine. For warmth, there's a tie between gauntlets and rabbit skin mittens. Both have the same warmth, windproof bonus, and weight, but we're going to give it to rabbit skin mittens due to its better waterproof bonus. If you can't find either of those 2, then you should go for the tactical gloves. If you can't get any of those 3 options, try to find any glove that has 1 degree Celsius of warmth, as the only gloves that are above that are the 3 listed here. Inner torso time. Protection will almost always be redundant here, as you should always have outer torso clothing, which will negate the protection of the inner torso gear. But just in case you don't, let's cover it. There's a tie between the Cowichan sweater and the fisherman's sweater, both with 5%. The Cowichan sweater is our number 1 though, because of its extra warmth and waterproof bonuses. After those, your best bet's going to be the thick wool sweater. Mobility for the inner torso is once again negligible. There are only 3 items in this category that are above 0% reduction, and that's the Cowichan sweater with 2%, and the wool and fisherman's sweaters 1%. So do not worry about them here. Funnily enough, our warmth items are twinning with our protection items, as we still have the Cowichan sweater at the top, then the fisherman's sweater, and the thick wool sweater. The outer torso is the big one, having one of the most impactful clothes in the game. Because of that, warmth bonus will be factored in a bit more and may trump raw attribute stats. For protection, the moose hide cloak is the best with 20% protection. After that, it's a tie between the bearskin coat and tactical jacket, with both having 15%. This one isn't so easy to decide. The bearskin coat is 4 degrees warmer, but 3 kilograms heavier and restricts 20% mobility. We're going to give it the number 2 slot because of how important it is to stay warm on Great Bear, but keep in mind the weight and movement cost of the bearskin coat. If you can afford to lose the warmth, then the tactical jacket may be better for you. For movement, number 1 is going to the urban parka. Great warmth for only 2% movement reduction. Number 2 is the Mackinac jacket, 3% reduction, but it keeps the warmth of the urban parka while only being 0.5 kilograms heavier. And at number 3 is the ski jacket, 0.5 degrees less warm, but the same weight and movement reduction as the urban parka. For warmth, our best option is far and away the bearskin coat, coming at 6 degrees Celsius. Number 2 is the expedition parka, 4 degrees Celsius of warmth, with 15% more mobility and 3.5 kilograms lighter. If you aren't playing on Interloper, you can honestly just use expedition parkas as you'll be plenty warm just with those. After that, your best bet is going to be the wolfskin coat. We've climbed to the top now here with the head. Your best protection here is going to be the cougar hide wrap with 6%, followed by the tactical balaclava with 5%, and then the wolfskin hat with 4%. Movement is completely negligible here, as all hats have a 0% reduction in movement. Warmth-wise, we're going to once again have the cougar hide wrap at the top with its crazy 4 degrees Celsius of warmth. After that, you have the wolfskin hat, followed by the tactical balaclava. Although, for this third spot, you could honestly choose any of the 2-degree hats. The tactical balaclava wins this spot because of its lighter weight, high waterproofing, and defense, but strictly speaking about warmth, there are so many 2-degree hats that work just as well. Before we can recap and see the stats of our loadouts, let's quickly talk about our accessory options. Apart from utility accessories like the moosehide satchel or tool belt, there are 3 accessories that influence your attributes in noticeable ways: the ballistic vest, improvised insulation, and wool ear wrap. For protection, you have to take the ballistic vest because of its ridiculous 50% protection bonus. For movement and for warmth, opt for the improvised insulation, and if you're focused on movement, make sure you do not have the ballistic vest on you, as it weighs a whopping 6 kilograms and heavily restricts your movement. Now guys, we can finally try on our new outfits. We're going to start with warmth. Assuming that we have all the best choices in every single slot, we would end up with a total warmth bonus of 44 degrees Celsius, which is the absolute maximum bonus you can have in the long dark. Unless you are playing on Interloper, going to Sundered Pass, or stuck in a blizzard, that's going to keep you warm forever. Now let's try on our protection gear. But remember, only the outermost layers of clothes affect protection. So when gearing up for protection, fill your inner layers with a different loadout instead. I would personally recommend a warmth loadout, but if you were focused on movement while also having protection, you could put your protection on top of your movement loadout. So with that being said, if we swap out our outermost clothing for the best protection options, we get this, totaling in a whopping 103% of protection, meaning that you are invulnerable to damage from sources like struggles and falling. You could even push this a little bit farther to the maximum possible protection bonus you can get in the long dark of 106 protection if you equip crampons in your other accessory slot. But I think we can both agree that's not necessary. Let's get ourselves optimized for movement. If we wear all of the best mobility clothes, we end up with only 4% movement reduction, 2 from each parka. Even if we wear the worst options from the redundant sections, such as the 2 Cowichan sweaters and rabbit skin mittens, we still only have 13% reduction, and we are ready to go run a marathon from Desolation Point to the tip of Sundered Pass. And that's all for today, guys. You're all now ready to destroy all the wildlife at the Great Bear Fashion Show next week. I hope you enjoyed the video. I tried to approach this in a way that I thought would be easier to digest for all of you since so much goes into clothing in this game. If I missed anything or got anything wrong, please let me know. I care greatly about the integrity of the information I give you guys. If you have thoughts, let me know down in the comments. And if you liked the video, like the video, as it really helps out the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.